My wife said, "I'm starting an open marriage, do whatever you want." So I did exactly what I wanted. She thought I'd sit home crying while she found herself, but when she came back and saw my date, suddenly open marriage wasn't so fun anymore. All right, Reddit, strap in. My wife decided our marriage needed to be open so she could explore her options. Gave me the green light to do whatever I wanted, thinking I'd just sit at home playing video games and waiting for her to come back. Boy, was she wrong. Here's the full story of how her little empowerment journey turned into her biggest regret. I, 34 male, work as a civil engineer for a decent firm in North Carolina. Not glamorous, but the pay is solid, and I actually enjoy the work. Designing bridges and infrastructure for small towns that desperately need it. There's something satisfying about knowing the road you designed is going to help people get to work safely for the next 50 years. The kind of work that won't make you famous, but lets you sleep well at night. Been with the same company for about 8 years now. Worked my way up from junior associate to project lead. Started in the trenches doing site surveys and load calculations, moved up to managing small municipal projects, and now I oversee major infrastructure developments across 3 counties. Got a nice house in a quiet neighborhood, a truck that's paid off, and a solid group of friends I've known since college. Life was comfortable, stable, the kind of existence that some people would call boring, but I called it exactly what I wanted. The house is this 3-bedroom ranch-style place I bought after our 2nd anniversary. Nothing fancy, but it's got a good yard for Buddy to run around in, a 2-car garage where I can actually work on stuff, and a nice deck out back where I like to grill on weekends. Paid below asking because the previous owners were relocating and wanted a quick sale. Sometimes being patient and boring pays off. My wife Megan and I met at a friend's wedding 6 years ago. She was one of the bridesmaids, I was one of the groomsmen, and we hit it off during the reception. Mutual friend Jake got married to his college sweetheart, and somehow Megan and I ended up seated at the same table for dinner. She worked in marketing for some tech startup, had this infectious energy about her, and seemed genuinely interested in what I did for a living, even though most people's eyes glaze over when I start talking about load-bearing calculations. The wedding was at this vineyard about an hour outside the city. Megan looked stunning in that pale blue bridesmaid dress, and she laughed at my terrible jokes about the structural integrity of the arbor they'd set up for the ceremony. We danced to 3 songs in a row without even realizing we'd monopolized the dance floor. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. Did the whole traditional thing, because that's what she said she wanted. Her favorite restaurant, her parents' blessing beforehand, got down on one knee and everything. Wedding was modest but nice. Her parents contributed, my parents contributed, and we didn't go into debt trying to impress anyone. Bought the house together about a year after that. Everything was tracking exactly how I'd planned. And that right there was apparently the problem. See, Megan started changing about 18 months ago. At first, it was subtle stuff. She joined this women's empowerment group that met every Thursday night at some community center downtown. Started reading all these self-help books about finding your authentic self and breaking free from societal expectations. She'd come home from those meetings all fired up about living life to the fullest and not being constrained by traditional roles. I didn't think much of it at first. Everyone needs hobbies and friends. If talking about feelings with other women for 2 hours a week made her happy, cool. I'd use that time to work on my projects in the garage or hang out with my buddy Derek. Derek's been my best friend since freshman year of college. We roomed together in the engineering dorms, survived thermodynamics and structural analysis together. Now we work at competing firms, which makes our friendship entertaining during bid seasons. We'll literally be trying to underbid each other on county projects Monday through Friday, then spend Saturday working on his motorcycle, like nothing happened. Dude's got a dry sense of humor that could desiccate a rainforest, and he's been married to his wife Rebecca for about as long as Megan and I have been together. They've got twin boys now, 5 years old, absolute chaos machines. She's reading what now? Derek asked one Saturday when we were in his garage working on his vintage motorcycle. He's restoring this 1975 Honda CB 550, found it in an old barn for basically nothing, and has been bringing it back to life piece by piece. Some book called Untamed or something, about how women shouldn't dim their light for anyone. Sounds like code for your marriage is about to get interesting. Nah, it's just a phase. She's allowed to have interests. Derek gave me this look that said he wasn't buying it, but wasn't going to push. He wiped his hands on a shop rag and grabbed 2 sodas from the mini fridge. Just keep your eyes open, man. Rebecca went through this phase a few years back, where she was obsessed with some lifestyle influencer, talking about manifesting and vibrations and all that. Lasted about 3 months before she snapped out of it. What made her stop? One of the influencer's manifestation techniques involved spending 500 bucks on crystals. Rebecca's too practical for that nonsense. He grinned. Your wife, though, she's always been more of a dreamer. Should have listened to him more carefully. The Thursday night meetings became more frequent. Then she started going to weekend retreats, meditation camps, sound healing ceremonies. Whatever that even means. She'd come back from these things talking about how she was shedding her old skin and stepping into her power. Her Instagram went from pictures of us at brunch to inspirational quotes over sunset backgrounds. I tried to be supportive, even read one of her books so we could discuss it together. The whole thing felt like word salad to me. Lots of talk about authenticity and self-discovery. Not much about actual concrete actions to improve your life. Lots of stories about women who left their boring husbands and found themselves on beaches in Bali. The subtext wasn't exactly subtle. Then she started mentioning this guy named Graham. Graham was apparently some kind of life coach who ran the workshop she was attending. Former corporate guy who woke up to the meaninglessness of the rat race and now helped others find their purpose. Had his own studio space where he held these group sessions. According to Megan, he was brilliant, revolutionary, had this way of seeing through people's defenses and helping them access their true selves. The way she talked about him made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Graham says most marriages fail because people stop growing together, she told me one night over dinner. Okay. He says the institution of marriage was designed to benefit men and keep women trapped in domestic roles. That's a take. Don't you want to grow, Nathan? Don't you want more than this? I looked around our kitchen. The kitchen in the house we'd worked hard to buy. The house with the updated appliances she'd picked out herself. The house with the yard where we were supposed to raise kids someday. More than what, exactly? She couldn't really answer that. Just said I wouldn't understand and went back to her phone. Her phone that was always buzzing now. Her phone that she angled away from me whenever I walked by. That's when I started paying closer attention. The phone was always face down now. She'd leave the room to take calls. Started working late more often, even though I knew her company had just gone through layoffs and everyone was doing less, not more. The marketing team had been cut in half, but somehow she was busier than ever. When I'd ask about work, she'd give vague answers. Just campaign stuff. Client meetings. But her laptop stayed closed most evenings. And the work stress she used to vent about had mysteriously disappeared. But here's the thing. I'm not a confrontational guy by nature. I don't snoop through phones or create drama without evidence. Part of me was still hoping this was just a rough patch. Something we could work through. Couples go through phases. People change. Maybe this would pass. I started documenting, though. Just quietly. Dates she was gone. Times she came home. Things she said about Graham. Not because I was planning anything. Just because my engineer brain likes data. Data tells you the truth even when people won't. Then she sat me down for the talk. It was a Tuesday evening in March. She'd made dinner, which should have been my first warning sign since she hadn't cooked in months. Used to be we'd alternate cooking responsibilities, but lately I'd been handling everything while she decompressed from her workshops. Set the table all nice with candles and the good plates we only used for special occasions. I thought maybe she was finally snapping out of whatever funk she'd been in. Yeah, no. Nathan, I need to tell you something important, she said, reaching across the table to hold my hands. Her grip was firm, like she'd practiced this. I've been doing a lot of soul searching lately, and I've realized something about myself. My stomach dropped. Here it comes. I think we need to open our marriage. I just stared at her. Excuse me? An open marriage, where we're both free to explore connections with other people while maintaining our primary relationship with each other. You want to sleep with other people. It's not about sleeping with other people, Nathan. It's about not limiting our growth as individuals. Graham says monogamy is an outdated construct that, there it is. Graham. Her face shifted. The rehearsed calm cracked just slightly. What's that supposed to mean? It means every sentence out of your mouth for the past 6 months has started with Graham says. So let me guess. You want an open marriage so you can hook up with Graham guilt-free. She actually looked offended. This isn't about Graham. This is about me finally understanding what I need to be fulfilled. And what you need is other men. I need the freedom to explore who I am without being confined by possessive, patriarchal expectations. I pulled my hands back from hers. Let me make sure I understand this. You want to stay married to me, live in this house, share finances, but also have the freedom to date and sleep with whoever you want. And you can do the same. That's the whole point. It's equal. Equal? Yes. I'm not asking for anything I'm not willing to give you. You can do whatever you want, Nathan. See other people, explore yourself, whatever. This is about both of us growing. I sat back in my chair and really looked at her. This woman I'd been married to for 4 years, dated for 2 years before that. The woman I'd planned my entire future around. The woman I'd bought a house for, saved for a ring for, imagined having children with. And I realized something that should have been obvious months ago. She wasn't asking for permission. She'd already made her decision. This whole dinner, this whole presentation, was just her way of making herself feel better about what she was already doing or planning to do. The question wasn't whether she was going to pursue Graham. The question was whether she could keep me on the hook while she did it. Do whatever I want, I repeated. Yes, exactly. Okay. She blinked. Okay? Yeah, okay. Open marriage. Whatever you want, Megan. Do whatever you need to do to find yourself. She looked genuinely surprised, maybe even a little disappointed, like she was expecting more of a fight, more begging, more of me trying to convince her to stay committed. She'd probably played out this conversation in her head a dozen times, and in every version I was supposed to protest, to argue, to give her something to push against. Really? You're okay with this? You want to explore. Go explore. I'm not going to stop you. She actually smiled. This genuine, relieved smile that made my stomach turn. Nathan, thank you. Seriously, I knew you'd understand eventually. This is going to be so good for us, I promise. We're going to come out of this stronger than ever. Sure, Graham was right. You're more evolved than I gave you credit for. I just nodded and finished my dinner. She was practically glowing for the rest of the evening, already texting someone, probably already making plans. The candles had burned down to nubs by the time she finally went upstairs, humming some song she'd probably learned at a workshop. That night, after she fell asleep, I went to the guest room. Lay there staring at the ceiling, processing everything. Buddy followed me in and jumped up on the bed, curling against my side like he knew something was wrong. My marriage was over. I mean, technically we were still married, but let's be real. The moment your wife asks to sleep with other men is the moment your marriage dies. The paperwork is just a formality. But here's what Megan didn't understand. When she said, do whatever you want, she thought she was throwing me a bone, a consolation prize to make herself feel less guilty about what she was about to do. She assumed I'd mope around the house, maybe try to win her back, definitely be waiting whenever she decided to come home from her adventures. She thought I was the safe, boring backup plan, the practical engineer with no imagination and no game. She severely underestimated me. The next morning, I called Derek before work. She said, what? Open marriage. I can do whatever I want. Long pause. I could hear the twins yelling about something in the background. And you said okay? What else was I going to say? She's already made up her mind. Probably already been with this Graham guy for weeks. So what's the plan? Plan is I do exactly what she said. Whatever I want. I could hear Derek processing this. All right. What do you want? First, I want to protect my assets. Then I want to get back in shape. Then I want to start living my life like it's actually mine. That's actually a pretty solid plan. I know. Over the next few weeks, I quietly made some moves. Talked to a divorce lawyer, paid for an hour consultation just to get the lay of the land. Opened my own bank account at a completely different bank and started funneling my paycheck there instead of our joint account. I still contributed to household expenses, but the surplus that used to just sit in savings was now going somewhere she couldn't touch. The lawyer was this no-nonsense woman named Patricia, who'd been handling divorces for 20 years. She didn't even blink when I explained the situation. Open marriage initiated by spouse with a specific third party already identified? I see this more than you'd think. She made notes. You're smart to consult now, rather than after things get messy. Started hitting the gym every morning before work. Not obsessively, just consistently. Bought a membership at this place near my office. Showed up at 5:30 a.m. every weekday. Within a month, I was sleeping better, eating better, and genuinely feeling good for the first time in a while. Funny how getting your wife's permission to give up on your marriage can be liberating. At the gym, I fell into a routine with a few regulars. Guys who were also there at ridiculous hours, because it was the only time that worked with their schedules. We'd nod at each other, spot each other on bench press, occasionally grab breakfast after. One of them, Kevin, became something like a friend. Retired military, divorced twice. Full of advice I didn't ask for, but secretly appreciated. Women like that, Kevin said one morning while we were stretching. They think they want excitement, some new guy who makes them feel special. But new wears off, and when it does, they come looking for what they threw away. You speaking from experience? First wife left me for her yoga instructor. Came crawling back 8 months later when she realized he was broke and living in a van down by the river. By then I'd met wife number 2. First wife lost her mind watching me move on. And wife number 2? Kevin grinned. She left me for her yoga instructor. At that point, I figured maybe I should stop marrying women who do yoga. I laughed despite everything. Sound advice. Megan, meanwhile, was living her best life. She was out 3, 4 nights a week now. Weekends at Graham's retreats. Coming home at 2 a.m., smelling like incense and other people. She'd float through the house like she was on cloud nine, barely acknowledging me except to ask if I'd paid the electric bill or fed the dog. Yeah, we have a dog. Buddy, golden retriever I got before we even met. He's been my ride or die through this whole mess. 8 years old, still acts like a puppy. Loves everyone but has excellent instincts about character. He'd started avoiding Megan lately, which told me everything I needed to know. Nathan, you should come to one of Graham's workshops sometime, she said one evening, as if we were just casual roommates discussing weekend plans. He has this amazing ability to help people see their blind spots. I'm good. You're isolating yourself. That's not healthy. I went to the gym this morning, had lunch with Derek, and I'm about to take Buddy for a walk. I'm fine. She frowned like I was missing the point. Physical fitness isn't the same as spiritual growth. My spirit's doing great, thanks. She huffed and went back to her phone, probably texting Graham about how closed off her husband was, how resistant to growth, how stuck in his boring, practical existence. During this time, work actually became a sanctuary. There's something grounding about engineering. Numbers don't lie. Materials behave predictably. When you design a bridge correctly, it holds. When you design it wrong, it fails. No ambiguity. No finding yourself. Just physics. I threw myself into a major project, a new interchange system for a growing suburb that had been stuck in traffic nightmare for years. The kind of work that requires total concentration. 14-hour days sometimes, but productive ones. My boss noticed the increased output. Everything okay at home, Nathan? You've been here more than usual. Just motivated, I told him. Technically true. By month 2, the gym results were showing. Lost about 15 pounds, gained visible muscle definition. Guys at work started commenting. Women at work started noticing. I wasn't trying to attract attention, just trying to feel like myself again. But confidence has a way of radiating outward, whether you intend it to or not. About 2 months into this arrangement, Derek invited me to a barbecue at his place. Said there'd be some people from his church there. Nothing crazy, just good food and good company. Derek and Rebecca had gotten more involved in their church after the twins were born. Something about needing community support and free childcare during Sunday services. Now, I'm not particularly religious, but Derek's church friends have always been cool. Normal people who happen to believe in God, not the judgmental types. I figured it beat sitting at home, while Megan was off exploring her authentic self with her guru. That's where I met Claire. She was Derek's wife Rebecca's college roommate, visiting from out of state. They'd been close at university but lost touch after graduation, reconnected on Facebook a few years back, and Claire was finally making good on her promise to visit. She worked as a veterinarian at some animal hospital in Tennessee, had moved around a lot for work, and was considering relocating to the area because she'd gotten tired of the constant transitions. Funny, smart, and genuinely kind in a way that felt rare. Brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, easy smile, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt like she'd come straight from a hiking trail. No pretense, no spiritual awakening aesthetic, just a real person having a real conversation. We ended up talking for most of the party, not flirting exactly, just connecting. She asked about my work and actually listened to the answers. Asked follow-up questions that showed she understood what I was talking about. Laughed at my terrible engineering jokes. So you literally design bridges? Like actual bridges that cars drive over? Someone has to. They don't just appear. I never thought about it. You just see a bridge and assume it's always been there. That's the goal, actually. If you're thinking about the bridge while you're crossing it, something's probably wrong. She laughed. Told me about the time she had to explain to a pet owner that their sick iguana was actually just cold because they weren't heating its tank properly. So you're basically a translator between animals and clueless humans, I said. Basically, yes. Except the animals are usually better communicators than the humans. I actually laughed. Genuinely laughed for the first time in months. You have a dog, right? I saw the golden retriever in the pictures on Derek's fridge. That's Buddy. 8 years old, acts like he's 2. Golden retrievers never really grow up. It's why people love them. He's the best. Only good decision I made in my 20s. She smiled at that. I have a cat, Mr. Whiskers. Don't laugh. I named him when I was 12 and he's 20 now. Refuses to answer to anything else. A 20-year-old cat? That's impressive. He's too mean to die. I'm convinced he's staying alive purely out of spite. When the party wound down, she gave me her number. in case you want to grab coffee sometime and complain about your respective jobs. I'd like that. I went home that night feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, maybe. Or just the reminder that connection was possible with someone who actually wanted to be present. Someone who made eye contact during a conversation instead of checking their phone. Megan was already asleep when I got back. Or pretending to be. Didn't matter either way. I texted Claire the next day. We got coffee that weekend. Then dinner the following week. Then we went to a movie. Then we went hiking with Buddy, who absolutely adored her within 5 minutes of meeting her. He usually takes longer to warm up to people, I said, as Buddy pressed against her legs, tail wagging furiously. Dogs know, she said, scratching behind his ears. They can tell who's good people. Here's the thing. I was completely upfront with Claire about my situation. Told her on our first coffee date that I was technically still married, that my wife had decided we were in an open marriage, and that I was essentially just riding out the clock until I could file for divorce without it being complicated. That's a lot, Claire said carefully. I know, and I completely understand if you want to run screaming in the other direction. She thought about it for a moment, stirring her latte. Is this open marriage thing something you wanted? Absolutely not. She announced it. I'm just dealing with the fallout. And you're sure it's over? Like, completely over? The marriage died the moment she asked permission to sleep with other people. Everything since then has just been logistics. Claire nodded slowly. I appreciate you being honest. Most guys would have lied. What would be the point? If we're going to even try to be something, it has to start with truth. She smiled. Okay, coffee it is then. We'll figure out the rest as we go. And that's exactly what we did. Over the next 2 months, Claire and I got closer. Nothing physical at first, just spending time together, talking, building something real. She understood I needed to end things with Megan properly before anything else could happen. We had this routine. Saturdays were hiking days with Buddy. Sundays she'd come over and we'd cook dinner together. Actual cooking, like from recipes, not just reheating stuff. She taught me how to make homemade pasta from scratch. I taught her the proper way to grill a steak. Domestic stuff that Megan always found boring, but Claire actually enjoyed. You know what I like about this? Claire said one Sunday, while we were chopping vegetables side by side. The free labor? She laughed. The quiet. We don't have to fill every second with conversation. We can just be. She was right. There was no performance with Claire. No trying to seem more evolved or spiritual or whatever. Just two people who enjoyed each other's company, doing normal human things. I'm not going to be someone's revenge hookup, she told me early on. If this is going to be something, it needs to be because you actually want me, not because you want to hurt her. Fair. Good. She told me about her own past. A 5-year relationship that ended when her ex decided he wanted to move to California, and she didn't want to leave her career. No drama, just incompatibility. She'd been single for 2 years, focused on work, not really looking for anything until she met me. Rebecca's been trying to set me up with every single guy in her church for years, Claire admitted. I finally gave in and came to visit. Figured I'd meet some awkward guy, have one polite conversation, and she'd leave me alone. And instead I met some awkward guy who builds bridges and has the sweetest dog I've ever seen. So the joke's on me, I guess. Meanwhile, Megan was so wrapped up in her own world that she barely noticed I had a life anymore. She'd breeze through the house between adventures, occasionally asking why I was never home, then immediately losing interest in the answer. Where were you last night? She asked one Saturday morning. Out with friends. What friends? You don't have friends besides Derek? I have other friends. She actually laughed. Since when? Since I started doing whatever I wanted, like you told me to. Something flickered across her face. Uncertainty, maybe. But she brushed it off and went back to packing for another retreat. Always another retreat. Always another weekend with Graham. Always another step toward whatever enlightenment she thought she was chasing. Around month 4, things shifted. Megan started coming home more. Started asking questions about my schedule. Started actually being present for dinner occasionally. Watching me like she was trying to figure something out. You seem different, she said one night. Different how? I don't know. Happier, more confident. She tilted her head. Have you been seeing someone? I looked at her directly. You told me I could do whatever I wanted. Her face went through about 6 emotions in 2 seconds. Yes, but are you actually dating someone? Is that a problem? We're in an open marriage, remember? Your idea? No, of course it's not a problem. I didn't think you'd actually what? Take you up on it? She didn't have an answer for that. Just sat there processing the fact that her permission slip had actually been used. Who is she? Why does it matter? I'm your wife, Nathan. I have a right to know. You're my wife who wanted an open marriage so she could explore herself with Graham. What I do with my freedom shouldn't concern you. Is it serious? I let the question hang there for a long moment before answering. It's real. That's all I'm going to say. She didn't push further that night, but something had shifted. She started being around more, started making comments about reconnecting and remembering what we have, started leaving little notes like she used to when we first got married, started suggesting date nights. Classic case of wanting what you can't have. About a week later, I finally made it official with Claire. Told her I was ready to file for divorce, that whatever we had was worth pursuing properly, and that I wanted to do this right. Are you sure? She asked. We were sitting on her apartment balcony, Mr. Whiskers glaring at us from his cat tree. Once you file, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything. The next day, I had divorce papers drawn up, cited irreconcilable differences, fair division of assets. I wasn't trying to take anything that wasn't rightfully mine, just wanted out, clean and simple. Patricia, the lawyer, helped me structure everything. You've documented everything like I told you? Every night she was gone. Every time she mentioned Graham. Financial records showing my contributions versus hers. Perfect. If she contests, we'll be ready. When I told Megan I wanted a divorce, she completely fell apart. What do you mean divorce? We're in an open marriage, not heading for divorce. Megan, you checked out of this relationship over a year ago. The open marriage was just making official what was already true. But I was going to come back. This was supposed to be temporary, while I figured myself out. And while you were figuring yourself out, I figured something out too. I don't want to be married to someone who needs other men to feel fulfilled. It's not about other men. It's about growth. Call it whatever you want. I'm done. She tried everything after that. Tears, anger, begging, threats. Said she'd fight the divorce. Said she'd take the house. Said I'd never find anyone who loved me like she did. Her friend Heather started texting me. Then her friend Priya. Both with variations of Megan's devastated. How could you do this to her? As if I was the villain in this story. As if she hadn't spent the better part of a year chasing another man with my full knowledge and consent. I showed Derek the messages. These women watched her basically move in with Graham and said nothing. Now they're acting like you're the bad guy? Narrative control. She probably told them I was okay with everything, and then suddenly changed my mind just to hurt her. Man, the mental gymnastics must be exhausting for them. I stopped responding to the flying monkeys after the third message. What was there to say? The truth was messier than whatever story Megan was telling, and I wasn't going to play defense attorney for my own life choices. That last one almost made me laugh. Megan, you don't love me. You love the stability I provided while you went looking for something better. Well, guess what? I went looking too. And I found it. Who is she? As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Claire, asking if we were still on for dinner. Megan snatched my phone before I could stop her. Saw Claire's name. Saw the heart emoji next to it. This is who you're leaving me for? Some random woman? You're destroying our marriage for a fling? I'm not destroying anything. You did that the night you asked for permission to be with other men. I'm just finally accepting the reality you created. She threw the phone at me, missed, and it cracked against the wall. Buddy, who had been sleeping in his bed, jolted awake and came to stand beside me, hackles slightly raised. Even my dog knew whose side he was on. Get out, she said. Get out of my house. It's our house. Both names on the mortgage. And actually, you're the one who's been barely living here for months. Maybe you should go stay with Graham. I'm sure he'd love to help you process this spiritual awakening. The look on her face when I said that was almost worth the entire year of nonsense. The divorce proceedings took about 6 months. She fought it initially, tried to claim I'd been unfaithful during the marriage, that I'd abandoned her emotionally. Her lawyer presented the open marriage as some kind of mutual growth exercise that I'd weaponized against her. My lawyer simply pulled out a timeline, all her nights away, all her retreats, all her text messages to Graham that my phone records showed were happening long before she ever proposed opening the marriage. She'd been having an emotional affair, probably physical too, and the open marriage talk was just her way of retroactively justifying what she'd already been doing. The judge saw right through it. During one of the hearings, Megan's lawyer tried to paint me as emotionally unavailable. Patricia countered with the documentation I'd kept. The calendar showing how many nights Megan was gone, the bank statements showing deposits made to Graham's retreat center, the timeline proving she'd started her involvement with Graham months before the open marriage conversation. The judge actually sighed at one point. So your client proposed an open marriage arrangement? Your client pursued extramarital relationships under that arrangement? And now your client is upset that the opposing party did the same? Her lawyer didn't have a good answer for that. In the end, we split assets fairly. She got bought out of her portion of the house equity. I kept the house, kept Buddy, kept my retirement accounts. She got her car, her personal savings, and a fresh start to continue finding herself. Graham, by the way, moved on to his next vulnerable student about 3 months into our divorce proceedings. Apparently, Megan wasn't the only woman in his empowerment circle who thought she was special. There were at least 3 others that I knew of, possibly more. The whole thing came out when one of the other husbands started digging. Found out Graham was using the same playbook with multiple women, isolating them from their marriages while positioning himself as their spiritual guide. Classic predator behavior wrapped in self-help language. She was devastated. Started reaching out to me again, apologizing, saying she'd been manipulated, asking if we could talk. I declined, politely but firmly. By the time the divorce was finalized, Claire and I had been together for almost 8 months. She'd moved to the area full-time, gotten a job at a local veterinary clinic, and we were talking seriously about the future. She fit into my life like she'd always been there. My friends loved her. My parents loved her. Buddy loved her. Last month, Megan showed up at the house, unannounced. Just appeared on the porch looking like she hadn't slept in days. Nathan, please, I made a terrible mistake. Graham was using me. The whole open marriage thing was stupid. I see that now. Can we please just talk? Claire's car was in the driveway. Her jacket was on the coat rack, visible through the door. Buddy was wearing the new collar she'd bought him. There's nothing to talk about, Megan. We're divorced. You wanted to find yourself. I hope you do. But that journey doesn't include me anymore. Who's here? Is she here? Is that her car? Claire appeared behind me, coffee mug in hand, completely unbothered by the drama unfolding on the porch. Everything okay? Megan's face crumpled. You replaced me. You actually replaced me. I didn't replace anything. I built something new, with someone who actually wants to be here. I wanted to be here. I just needed time to... You needed time to explore your options, and keep me on the back burner in case nothing better came along. That's not love, Megan. That's inventory management. Claire put her hand on my shoulder. Buddy pressed against my leg. My whole team, right there. Megan looked at the 3 of us, and I watched the reality finally sink in. The reality that her open marriage gambit had backfired spectacularly. That the husband she'd taken for granted had actually taken her up on her offer. That while she was busy finding herself, I'd found someone else. This isn't fair, she said, tears streaming down her face. You weren't supposed to actually do anything. You were supposed to wait for me. You told me to do whatever I wanted. This is what I wanted. A partner who chooses me. Not because she's run out of other options, but because I'm her first choice. She had nothing left to say to that. Just stood there crying for a moment, then turned and walked back to her car. But that wasn't the end of it. 2 days later, she showed up at my work. Just walked right into the office like she still had some claim to my life. My co-workers watched her march past the reception desk and head straight for my office. Nathan, we need to talk. Privately. My project manager looked up from his desk. Everything okay? Fine. Former spouse having trouble with boundaries. I grabbed my jacket. Let's take this outside, Megan. In the parking lot, she went full meltdown mode. Said I'd humiliated her in front of my new girlfriend. Said I owed her an explanation. Said Graham had manipulated both of us, and we should be supporting each other through this. You showed up at my house unannounced. You demanded answers you weren't entitled to. And now you're at my workplace? I pointed at her car. Leave. Now, or I'm calling security. You wouldn't. Try me. She left, but not before keying Claire's car on the way out. One long scratch down the driver's side door. Claire saw the damage that evening and just laughed. Wow. Real mature. I'll pay for the repair. No, you won't. That's what insurance is for. Besides, I've been wanting to get the whole car repainted anyway. Silver was never really my color. I filed a police report the next day. Nothing came of it legally, but it went on record. Patricia, the lawyer, said it was important to document everything in case Megan tried anything else. She did. The following week, Megan's friend Heather started leaving 1-star reviews on my company's Google page. Claimed we'd done shoddy work on a project we'd never even bid on. Then Priya created a fake Facebook profile and started messaging Claire's co-workers with rumors about me being emotionally abusive. Claire's boss actually called her into the office about it. Claire showed her the messages, explained the situation, and her boss just shook her head. Some people really can't handle being told no. Derek helped me track down the fake profiles and report them. Most got taken down within a week. The fake reviews got flagged and removed after I provided documentation that the reviewer had never been a client. Megan went quiet after that, probably realized she was digging herself into a hole. 3 weeks later, the real karma arrived. Graham's empowerment center got raided by the state attorney general's office. Turns out the guy had been running an unlicensed investment scheme through his workshops, promising women that their spiritual investments would yield abundance returns. Over $2 million from vulnerable people looking for meaning. 6 women came forward with additional allegations. Graham had been sleeping with multiple students while convincing each of them they were special, that they had a unique connection, that their husbands just didn't understand the depth of what they shared. Megan was one of them. So were at least 5 others from her empowerment circle. The local news ran the story. Graham's face was everywhere for about a week. Then he posted bail and fled to Costa Rica. Last I heard, there's an extradition request pending. Megan texted me the day the story broke. I'm so sorry. I was manipulated. Can we please talk? I didn't respond. She texted again a week later. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need closure. Didn't respond to that one either. The final text came about a month after that. I'm moving back to Michigan to live with my parents. I hope you have a good life, Nathan. I'm sorry for everything. I typed out a response, thought about it, deleted it. Some conversations just don't need to happen.
Toggle back and forth between them because I'm always like just pounding through books, and it allows me to both enjoy sort of the page and the feeling of having a book in my hand. But in Miami, I drive a lot. So if I get into a book, I normally start with it in hard form, and then I start listening to it if I really like it after, I give myself like an hour. If I'm into it, I also buy it on Audible, and then I go back and forth between the two. So I got used to, because of that, listening, and it was right around the same time I got into podcasts, and now I'm always listening to something, almost to like my detriment, because I think for all of us, we need sort of the calm, the peace, the noise to just be taken down. And I'm like such a voracious consumer of information.